Hi, it's Kassy with Kassy's Parlour. Today we are going to make the cutest little brooch out of Grafix Shrink Film. I have clear, which can go through a printer or it can be used in many different ways. I'm going to show you a couple today. And then I also have white. So it also comes in other colors and metallic. Definitely you should check out all of the choices, but today we're going to use clear and white. Okay, so I'm going to put these off to the side so we can just get started. So I've got some white and clear here ready to go, and the first thing I'm going to do is use the clear, and I'm actually just going to stamp on it this time, but you definitely can, if it's like a full sheet, you can, if you get the kind that can be printed through printer, you can you know, design your shapes online or whatever and print them and then shrink them, and it looks really cool. So lots of fun, interesting ways to use this material. So I'm going to be using Stays On pigment in Piano Black. And I also have a stamp set from Kassy's Parlour called One Wild Life, and we are going to use the main phrase stamp from this set. This is my new stamp set, very exciting. Okay, so we're going to use this one, and I've got Rock-a-Block. Okay, and we're just going to stamp right onto the clear clear shrink film. So I'm going to ink it up really well. It's a brand new ink pad. I'm really excited. I love this ink so much. I use it all the time. And it works really well on all graphics products, especially this shrink film. So I'm just going to stamp my image. Now when you're stamping on here, you do want to be careful. The shrink film is a little bit slippery sometimes, so you just want to make sure. That looks great. There we go. It is stamped onto the clear shrink film. Yeah, so what I was saying was it can be a little bit slippery, so you just want to be careful and take your time and do it gently, okay? So that is going to be cut out and it's ready for the oven. When I'm working with shrink film, you can, sometimes I can shrink it with like a heat gun, but my preference, excuse me, is to use the oven. It's easier. I can get all of my supplies ready all at once, and then I just put it on a cookie sheet on a piece of parchment paper, and I'm able to shrink everything at the same time. It lays nice and flat, and it works beautifully. So that is my preference for shrinking the shrink film. But you can also, in some instances, depends on the size of what you're shrinking and your comfort level with doing it that way, but you can definitely use a heat tool if it's like a hot one, like a Wagner, like something you would use for you know, thermal embossing. You could use that as well. Okay, so here is my stamped image. Really pretty. I love this phrase. I love the way it's designed, and it's gonna look really cool as a brooch that you can wear out and about. Okay, so next we are going to play with the white shrink film, and I have a couple of pieces here. I have one kind of smaller square piece that we're going to do some warm colors on. I'm gonna make, so there's a star. Let's see if you can see it. It's better if I take this off. There's a star right here, and I kind of want to repeat that star but make it a little bit bigger and have it be on the final pin, so, or brooch. So that's what I'm going to do right now with this piece, is make that star. And then I'm also going to cut another piece that I'm going to use some cool colors, and I'm going to layer. So I'm just going to cut a tall strip, and I'm just kind of winging it, you know. I'm not measuring. I'm not much into measuring, and I just kind of like to go with the flow and see where things go. So well, let's start with the cool, or the warm colors first. Okay, so we have this is T-Rex ink, alcohol ink. It's beautiful, really vibrant colors. They have a good selection. So anyway, we're using Sunshine Yellow, Dragon Fruit Pink, and Snapdragon Pink, okay? And I tend to like to start, when I'm gonna work with alcohol ink, I tend to like to start with the lightest color, and I kind of put a lot on, because it almost always gets overpowered by the darker colors. So the darker colors, I'm going to just do a lighter amount, and then this is even darker. Oh, maybe it isn't. Thought it was darker, but it's actually not. Just the lid looks darker. Okay, and so now I'm going to use my felt pouncing tool just to kind of move the color around, get things settled where I want them. And I almost always, you know, go over this a few times, because it, you know, just needs some work. The beauty of alcohol ink is that you can just keep going until you're happy with what you have. So I'm just lightly pouncing to kind of move that color around so it's not just in a blob kind of circle. And see how the yellow's kind of gone? So now I want to bring it back too. I really like what that's doing though. I'm going to take this off and put a fresh pad on. And this time I'm going to put some of the yellow right into the felt pad. So that's another way you can apply your alcohol ink to your surface. And that tends to let it sort of take the place of what was there a little bit more. Oh, that's cool. Now I like these kind of cells. That looks really, really awesome to me. And I love having a little bit more control this way. Wow, that looks super cool. I love that like vibrant pink mixed with that other darker pink, and then this bright yellow coming in. Super, super cool. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to the pink one. I'm not even gonna reload it. I'm just gonna press and see what I get, because I do love getting these little cells here and there. So I just like to play with this until I'm happy with the outcome. I think I want more of that electric pink, so I'm going to get a fresh pad. I love these little felt pads because they're inexpensive, you know, and it's easy to just change them up and get a fresh one to use each time. And I'm only going to put this time this more vibrant pink, which is the dragon fruit pink. Okay, and let's see where we can add a little bit more of that, because that is super cool. Okay, I am loving this. And in the end, remember, I'm cutting out a star out of this, so really I'm just going to use a really small area, but I will definitely use the rest for something else, so it's never wasted. So I'm pretty happy with this layout. I like probably this area because I've got a little more bright yellow and some pink and that darker pink, almost reddish kind of color. So I'm going to put this off to the side to dry while we work on the next piece. Okay, now I have this taller piece, and I am going to use the cool colors on this piece. So, okay, I've just got Glacier Blue and Firefly, and the Firefly has some shimmer in it, so that's going to be really cool effect. All right, so I'm putting some blue, a little bit everywhere. And then I'm going to shake up the Firefly because it does have the shimmer in the bottom there, and I would really like to have some of that on my project. T-Rex has a line of shimmer alcohol ink and then regular colors as well. So, and they work great with all the Grafix products. Okay, I love this. Now I'm going to get a fresh pad, and I'm going to start with the green, I think. Ooh, so pretty. I love how vibrant it is, especially when it's pounced like this. Really, really vibrant and beautiful. Now I want to keep the vibrancy. I don't want it to get more like a darker green. So I'm going to try to not cross-contaminate my pads here. So now I'm going to use the blue And I don't mind some areas turning a little bit more green, but I really do want to keep some of that bright, limey kind of green intact. So there we go. So now I think I want a little bit more blue, more, not in more areas, but I want it to be like a little bit more vibrant. Let's see what we can do. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. That's not what I was going for, but I like the way this is working out. That's another one of my favorite things about alcohol ink, is that sometimes, you know, well, most of the time, at least for me, I don't always get what I expect to get. I get even better. So I'm very excited about this. Getting a fresh pad again, and I'm going to put some Firefly right onto the felt pad. And just making sure, I think kind of where they intersect a little, I want to just get a little bit more of this bubble type texture in here. It's really cool. Okay. All right. I am loving this a lot, actually. So I think I'm good. One thing I'm going to try though, I've got some just 91% isopropyl alcohol in this mister, and I just want to see what we get if we use it. I kind of want more blue in this. Whoa, look at that. Holy moly. That just pounced all over my color. Wow. That is really cool. I think I do want to take just a little bit of Tidal Teal. It's a little bit darker, just a tiny bit though, because I don't want it to be too dark. One thing to note when you're using shrink film, whatever you're putting onto it, it does get a little bit darker when it shrinks, because that pigment is just condensing more, you know, if you think about it like that. So if you don't want it to be too dark, I got a little fuzz on me. Just be aware of that. And I just want to add a few dots here and there. There's a lot of green. I'm loving the green, but I kind of want a little bit more of this teal, and I'm controlling how much goes on by only using it, excuse me, with the with this felt applicator. Okay, and I love how it's giving me those sort of cells all over. Wow, this is so fun. If you haven't played with alcohol ink before, I mean, you really just need to, especially on shrink film or any of the graphics plastics, the opaque plastic or any of them. I'm telling you, it is very addictive and very fun, and you'll sit for hours and just keep playing and playing. It's so fun. Anyway, okay. I think we're good to move on. I'm just a little bit addicted right now and I can't stop. So this looks fantastic to me. I am going to be done with this. We're going to keep this. And then we are going to shrink everything. Oh, first I have to cut out the star. So let me clean up this mess. We'll cut a star and then we'll go shrink. Okay, now we're going to cut out the star. Now I did make a template star so that I could kind of have the shape that I want. And I really like I was saying earlier, I really like this area that has the yellow and that bright pink. It looks really, really cool. So I think I'm gonna try to cut out from this area, kind of in the corner. Plus, then that gives me the rest of that space to use for something else, because I really don't want to waste any of this because it's way too cool. Okay, so I'm just going to trace around very loosely. This is just kind of a guide to give me the shape. And then I'm going to cut inside these lines. That's why I'm kind of going on the outside of that pattern here. Okay, so I've got my, so now I'm just going to cut it with scissors. And I'm going just inside the line. I love how it has a lot of varied color in it. It's got a little bit of the yellow right on the edge, and then that fun kind of vibrant pink. I'm gonna take this off of here so that it's a little bit easier to manage, a smaller piece. And I'm trying to hold on the edges and not get my fingerprints or anything too much on the shrink film. And I even save all these little parts and I shrink them down, or you don't even have to shrink them down. If you've put alcohol ink on them, you like them, and they're the size that you want, you could just use them in a project. You don't really even have to shrink it down, but it is really cool and fun to shrink it. You get a nice, really sturdy piece that you can use as ephemera on any kind of mixed media project. So look at this. That is the coolest star ever. I do actually want to come back to the cool piece that we made, and I want to stamp on it. But one thing I will say, if you're working with shrink film and you have used alcohol ink on top of it like I have here, and then you want to stamp on it, you will have a better outcome if you use archival ink than if you used stays on pigment. I did try before when I was just playing and practicing with this stuff to use the stays on pigment, and it really more pulls the ink off of the plastic rather than putting ink on the plastic. So just a note, yeah, I'll use black soot, archival ink. You could of course use any color you like, but I think I just want to add some of my little doodles. So in this set that I have, Kassy's Parlour, it's One Wild Life. It's got, you know, the main phrase, but then I just made a bunch of different doodles that you could use, you know, for any mixed media project or journaling or, you know, card making, anything really. But I want to use this now to just add some doodles. I'm even just going to use my hand because I don't need it to be perfect. What I really want here is just some other fun doodle patterns on here so that when they shrink, they are going to help us focus on our focal point. And it just adds some little extra fun detail. Because this is going to go, my plan is for this to go behind this piece here and just be sort of like the background for it. Oh, it's hard to explain. You'll see when we get there. All right, so I've got my doodle circles, and I chose the circles. I kind of like how they mimic what's already here. I think that looks pretty fun. So we're just going to play with that, and I'm just going to use the one pattern this time. I did think about the star. That would look pretty cool as well. But yeah, you could do really whatever you like. All right, and I'm doing a few, and then we'll decide what looks best when we get to the final assembly. All right, putting a little bit more right there. Oh, that's cool. Okay, I really like this now. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. This is gonna be awesome. Okay, so now we are ready to bake these. Okay, so we're gonna be baking this piece and our star. And this is basically going to be our brooch. I'm going to bake it at 300 degrees for about 4 minutes, and it'll be on a cookie sheet with parchment paper on the bottom and on top, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have shrunk them, and you can see how much smaller they are. This is the parchment paper I was working on. I brought it over because it's warm when it first comes out. The other thing I will note that I forgot to mention before was that when this first comes out and it's got this parchment paper over the top of it, I take a silicone mat and I lay it over top and I press down with my hands to try just to make sure it's nice and flat and it doesn't have any bubbles or little ripples in it. That's just something I do that seems to help sometimes, but yeah, you should be good. So I have all 3 pieces here now. This one is a little bit bigger right now than I want it to be for this. So I'm just going to cut really gently and take my time and do little pieces at a time. At this point, I mean, it would be preferable if you make your piece the way you want it, before you shrink it, so you don't have to cut, because if you cut too quick, you can just crack it. I got really lucky there and was able to cut it after, but I don't actually recommend doing that. I would definitely do it before you shrink it and try to make it the size you need it to be. But sometimes if you're playing or you're just not quite sure how it's going to be when it's shrunk, then, you know, if you're very careful like you saw, you can cut it after. That I want to add a few of these cute little stars. They're just little star charms, but I think they're super cute, and they're flat. They're just little flat metal charms. So I'm going to put those in the background, and then I really just need to resin all of this because it's going to look amazing resined, and it's going to hold all of that dimension in there. And it's, you know, you don't have to resin this because it is really sturdy. It's plastic, you know, like it is not going to break. And especially if you're going to wear it as a brooch or something like that, or if you want to make earrings or necklace or like other kind of jewelry, bracelet pieces, you definitely can do that, and you do not need to resin it. But I just love resining, and I think it looks really cool, and I just decided that we're going to do it. So I'm going to show you how I do it, and yeah, and it only takes a few minutes. You definitely want to have gloves on. You want to have a mask if you have one, or if you're sensitive to resin smell, I would recommend a mask. And then I would also recommend, wherever it's going to cure for, I would say overnight at least, you want that to be in a well-ventilated area, somewhere away from your normal living space, because it can be a pretty strong scent and odor, and we just want to be safe. But resining is so fun. It's very addictive, and I can't help myself. So we're going to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's really not hard. You just have to have a little bit of patience and take your time and be safe. All right, so I've got my resin Teflon mat. You can see there's resin from other projects that didn't get fully cleaned off. This is specifically for my resin projects, as you can see. So I just roll it up when I'm done, put it away, and then get it out the next time. So I'm going to get all of my pieces that I want to resin. Resining things can be a little bit messy. It just wants to go, you know, it just like, it gets on your gloves, it gets here and there. So just be safe, wear an apron, wear gloves, wear a mask, but have fun. And when you're going to resin, maybe even plan to do a few things at once so that you can, you know, that you can get it all done. So I'm just going to have 2 of those stars, since I have this star that makes 3 stars. We like to work in 3s. And I'm going to put the rest off to the side. I really just want to have all the things kind of ready to go so that when we get the resin mixed and it's ready, we're good. The resin that I'm using, I've got first, sorry, let me move this over a little bit. I want to keep everything in the camera here for you. I've got a food scale. You can use any kind of scale really, but you want something that measures in ounces, so that, because you're generally, especially if you're making smaller pieces like this, you really do not need a lot of resin, okay? And remember, whatever you decide, if I'm doing 1 ounce, 2 ounce, whatever, it's going to be double that, because, well, depending on the type of resin you use, it's either a 1-to-1 mix or a 2-to-1 mix. So, the resin I'm using is from Upstart. It's called Upstart Epoxy Art Resin. It's amazing. It's self-leveling. It's crystal clear. Even if you're mixing, you mix nice and slow, sometimes you get bubbles anyway. I've never had issues with bubbles when it comes to the final piece and what I'm working on. It's a 1-to-1 mixing ratio, so it's nice and easy. You need the same amount of the resin and the hardener. It's made in the US. It says it has a 35-minute working time, which is awesome, and a 50-minute gel time. So that just means it starts to gel and starts the hardening process in about 50 minutes. But I definitely would say let it cure at least 24 to 48 hours. So if you're going to resin, you need to do it, you know, if it's going to be for a project or a gift or something like that, you need to do it ahead of time. You need to give yourself a few days to make sure you have enough time so that you're not, you know, so that you don't run out of time for it to cure. So I've got a plastic cup. You can use lots of different kinds of things for this. I like to use disposable things or things that you could like let it harden and then peel it out later and do that. So lots of different choices for all of this stuff, lots of different types of resin. You just want to look for something that is crystal clear, that gives you a little bit of open time so that you have time to mix it and then, you know, get your stuff ready and work. Some resins dry faster than others. So it just depends on what you're doing and what you're comfortable with. Okay. So I'll first actually turn on the scale. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to put my cup down on here and I'm going to zero it. Okay, so we're at 0. Now I'm starting with my first, and I'm just going to do a 1/2 ounce because I really don't need a lot for the project that I'm doing. So there's 4.2, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9. Come on, we're almost there. And I try to be as precise as possible. Okay, so I'm at 1/2 ounce of one of them, and then we're going to do the other. And I'm just doing it right in the same cup. We're going to keep going until we get to, you know, we're just adding 0.5. So I'm doing 1 to 1, so I really want to be careful, not put too much in. There we go. Tiniest bit. I'm 0.04 over. Now I'm done with the scale. So I'm going to put that off to the side. And now we're just going to mix. And this part you need to be patient and you need to go nice and slow. So remember, we've got hardener and resin in here together, and one is thicker than the other. You want to mix slowly because if you mix too fast, you're going to get a lot of bubbles, and you want to try to minimize the amount of bubbles you have in your mixture, in your resin. When you first start mixing, it's going to look cloudy. Can you see? It's gotten kind of cloudy. That's good. That means it's working and it's mixing. And you want to mix it until it's clear again, and even then a little bit longer. They recommend, most of the resins I've used in the past recommend mixing for 2 to 3 minutes without stopping. And then after this, we're going to transfer it to another cup and mix it some more, just to make sure we have it fully combined. What happens if you don't fully combine the resin is that it won't cure ever, and it will stay sticky and it will ruin your project. So you really want to take your time and just mix it up, go back and forth like this, go around in a circle, kind of do everything, you know, just pull it through the middle, scrape the edges, try and get in the corners, make sure you're using a round container. It's a lot easier to get in all the little cracks that way. And you'll notice as I'm going, I do have some bubbles in here, and that's okay. That's a pretty minimal amount of bubbles. I have had more bubbles before, and I still had success with this particular resin. Some resins will turn yellow over time. Some of them, you know, like I said, need different mixing ratios. So you just want to make sure whatever resin you're going to use, that you read the packaging carefully and that it is going to serve you in the way that you need it to. Some resin is specifically made for jewelry making. Some resin is good for tabletops. You know, there's different kinds out there. So the resin I'm using here is wonderful for what we're doing. It dries very clear and it's self-leveling, and it just looks amazing. It's crystal clear and I really love using it. It's very stinky, but that's how resin is. And I would say compared to other resins I've used, it's actually not as, it doesn't have as strong an odor as it could. So do you see now the resin is starting to get clear again? It's getting there. It's a little bit cloudy, but it's getting clearer. We do have more bubbles, but again, that is okay with this particular resin, but I'm still going slowly. And when you've mixed it for about 2 to 3 minutes, and you feel like you've gotten all the little cracks and nooks and crannies, and you've really mixed it well, and it's clear again, we're pretty much clear. All right, so now we're going to take a second cup and we're going to transfer our resin to that cup. This seems silly, but it really is an important step because it's making sure, it's number one, helping to mix your resin as it pours into the other cup, but also it helps you get in all the little cracks. Like I said, make sure you get as much of it out. Obviously you can't get every little drop, but as much of it out as possible. And it's just going to help ensure that your resin is properly mixed and ready to use so that you can have great results. All right, so I'm scraping the bottom, scraping the edge really well, okay? Making sure I get as much of it out of there as possible. And you see I'm just using a popsicle stick, so you don't need a fancy tool or anything to do this mixing or to scrape it or whatever. You could use I suppose you could use like a silicone palette knife or something. You just want to make sure whatever you're using is easy to use and is going to allow you to get as much of that resin out of there as you can. So look, I got pretty much all of it out. And now we're in a new cup, a fresh cup, and we're just going to mix it a little bit longer and then we'll be ready to use it. So honestly, the process isn't really difficult. It just takes a little patience and, you know, being safe and taking your time. In the second cup, you just want to mix it long enough to make sure you're really good to go. I would say 60 to 90 seconds should be good. You don't want to go faster and be like, oh, it's fine, it looks mixed up, you know, it looks like it's mixed enough for me, because you could be disappointed in the end. I would take the time up front and just go nice and slow and enjoy the process to make sure that you have a good result in the end, okay? That would be my main tip. All right, so I'm gonna put this cup off to the side. And I think we're ready now. I'm gonna just wipe my gloves off a little bit. I've got some resin on them. I'm telling you, no matter how careful you are, the resin does kind of get everywhere. Okay, so now I have my little pieces here. All right, and I decided I want to use these stars. I've got my pin back, which I won't actually be able to use until tomorrow because this has to stay flat and level so that the resin doesn't tip off. But this will be glued on tomorrow with like a metal glue or something like that, E6000 or Gorilla Glue or some kind of just really strong glue to the back of this. You could use resin on the back of it, but I probably won't have any left over by, you know, I won't be resining tomorrow, so I will just use a regular glue and I'll just show you. And you know, it's just a normal pin back, so I'll just glue it onto the back here and then I can use this as a brooch. All right, so the next step, first I'm going to put some resin on. I've got my popsicle stick here, and I'm going to use that to kind of put some resin down and move it around. You have a bit more control this way. I wouldn't recommend just pouring right from the cup unless you have a bigger surface you were going to work on. But this way it lets you put, you know, just the right amount of resin down, lets you take it right to the edge without going over and without, you know, getting so much on there that it's going to kind of spill over, and lets you move it around enough to get it right where you want it. And I'm putting this first layer of resin down, and then I'm going to put stuff on top of it. And the other really cool thing I love about resin is, can you see already how bright and vibrant it makes this piece look? I mean, it just brings out all of that color and detail. It's really, really amazing. Resin, if you decide to try this and get started, you're just never gonna stop. You're gonna want to resin everything because Looks so beautiful. Okay, so I've got a nice layer there, and you don't really have to try to, you know, this is self-leveling, so it really, that's a really nice feature, and it's going to make it a lot easier to work with. Okay, so next I want to put down, I should have gloves that fit me a little bit better. Actually, hold on. I want to put the stars down first because I want those to be underneath. And I can move them around once they're down here. I'm just going to kind of plop them in the general area I want them to go, if I can pick it up. That is, there we go. So I want one on top, one below. And I'm going to kind of place this a little wonky on the side like that. All right, and then I'm going to take my popsicle stick here, and I'm going to move things around a little bit just so I get them where I want them. You've got a lot of open time here. You've got 35 minutes of open time, really, at least anyway, with this resin. So you can lay stuff down, you can move it around, you can take your time and really figure out what you want it to look like. So see, I've got one star down here and one up here. I love that. And then I'm going to put one right there on top. So let's get that one down. I've got a little bit of resin here. I'm just going to set it right on top of this star. Eventually I'm going to put resin on this whole thing, so that'll be fine. I just want to get this star in place so I can see it all together, you know. I really need some tweezers here right now. Yeah, I might have to go get some. We'll see. I'm feeling, I tend to be lazy and just try to use what I have, but I might not be able to. This is a very small star and I've got very big gloves on. Let's see what we can do. Okay. My stuff is moving a little bit, no big deal. I can move it back. All right, looking pretty good. I don't want that star to cover any words. I want it to be kind of right over where the other thing was, and it looks good to me. So now this is also an opportunity if you wanted to put some glitter in, maybe some glass glitter, or just sprinkle a little bit of glitter in here. It's really cool. I think I might do that. All right, so we're zooming in a little bit just so you can see a little bit better what is going on here. I'm going to put this back in there and keep that in my resin cup. Now I've got a clean popsicle stick, and I've got some champagne glass glitter, which I've had forever, and I use it a lot, and I still have a lot left. And I just like to pick up a little bit, not even that much. And I'm just going to let it fall. All right. Ooh, that looks cool. Really, really tiny amount. It all looks great to me. And now I'm going to put resin over the top layer. All right, just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to just move it around. I don't mind having a little extra on this top layer because I do kind of want it to pour over the sides. And that's another reason why I didn't put quite as much on the underneath layer, the lighter, the cool layer, because I knew that this was going to be kind of pooling over it. I want it to just be one unified piece in the end. And this is really going to help make that happen. It's also going to cover up some of that glass glitter and, you know, just give it so much more dimension. Oh my gosh. This is the coolest pin ever. Okay, this looks amazing. I'm going to bring you in really close since I can't really lift it up. Move that out of the way. There we go. So when this is dry, I'll take some close-up pictures and it will be at the end of the video here, but can you see that glass glitter on the side and see all these layers? It's going to be amazing. Oh, I'm so excited. So we're going to end the video here. I will show you pictures at the end of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was really fun. I hope you enjoyed this project. Go get some shrink film, get some resin, and make yourself a pin or a brooch. Have a great day.